Before I get into this, some of y'all are going to say to yourselves, Taurean, why didn't you make this into a triple P? There was one thing with this story that kept it from being a triple P, that if it had not been the factor, this would have had triple P written all over it. And that factor is that this guy got a life sentence. So this guy's name is Doug Jensen, and he was one of those individuals who was a part of the invasion, because I don't like to call it insurrection. I like to call it invasion because it's literally what it was. The invasion at the Capitol on January 6th back in 2021. And he was just sentenced to 5 years in prison for his role in it. That's what kept me from doing this as a triple P, because his sentencing was that light. 5 years is nothing. But everything else that falls into it was triple P worthy, but that's what kept it out. But what makes this story hilarious, which it could have made this triple P, was when he says that he wants to go back to being a family man. Now, this guy went and invaded the Capitol on January 6th with all of those clowns and buffoons and terrorists, as far as I'm concerned, because that was a terroristic act. Like, you literally was engaging in the act of what some could say is trying to overthrow the government. And they lucky they got them licenses for doing such and committing such an act. This is why something like this should stay in the news forever. Okay, this needs to be in the history books and written and told the correct way. But we know that's not going to be the case. But this guy says he wants to go back to being a family man. You wasn't thinking about your family when you did what you did on January 6th. When was you worried about being a family man then? It was non-existent. But now he wants to say he wants to go back to being a family man. Well, your family's going to be spending the next few holidays and birthdays away from you if he has to do all 5 of these years. I mean, it's just 5 years. I'm sure they're going to go by in a flash. But, you know, for him, that's probably going to feel like 500. And if it feels like 500, so be it. The January 6th rioter who chased a Capitol police officer up a staircase as senators huddled in a nearby room was sentenced to 5 years in prison. At his sentencing hearing on Friday, Doug Jensen spoke briefly in his defense, stating that I can't change my past, I can only look to my future. He added that he wanted to go back to being a family man. Jensen's lawyer blamed the baseless QAnon conspiracy theory in part for the rioters' actions after he got into the Capitol building and shouted for then Vice President Mike Pence to be arrested. Hold on. I don't agree with anything QAnon people be talking about. I don't even look at anything that they talk about. But to sit there and blame them for why he did and why the rest of them did what they did is asinine. It's absolutely absurd. These individuals had the wherewithal to not go to that to that invasion. They could have chose not to go, but they went anyway. See, this is what I'm talking about. The amount of excuses that they lay out for them to get away with the stuff that they do, or to try to get them out of a consequence or a punishment that's deserved. And even this 5 years is nothing compared to what a black person would have got. And speaking of, didn't a black guy get sentenced to, I think he got a longer sentence than he did. 5 years is nothing. See, the thing is, a lot of the people that went to that invasion, of course, PC, thought that they had the privilege to go and do what they did and thought they were going to get away with it. But see, this is also them overstepping their boundaries when it comes to that whole freedom of speech thing. Oh, I can say what I want and nothing's going to happen to me. But see, they've been indoctrinated for so very long, that they can say and do whatever they want and they'll never have any consequence come their way. And the minute that they do get a consequence, even if it's the smallest consequence, somehow the world is against them. Like, they feel they can do and say anything and get away with it with no consequence coming their way whatsoever. And that's what he thought. That's what all of them thought. On Friday, a federal judge sentenced Jensen to 5 years in prison. The sentencing range for the case was 57 to 71 months, according to McFarland, with prosecutors requesting a 64-month sentence, which would have been just over 5 years. Jensen was previously convicted on all counts against him, including assaulting, resisting, or impeding a law enforcement officer and obstruction of an official proceeding. According to the Department of Justice, he was also found guilty of 2 misdemeanors. According to federal agents, Jensen illegally entered the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Once inside, Jensen faced off with Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman and then led that pack that chased Goodman throughout the Capitol. By the way, that was the black cop that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's the one that shot Ashley Babbitt. He was that black cop. So they literally pinpointed and chased him. Like, there's actual footage and imagery you can find online of him literally, of them chasing them, and he's literally in the front leading the pack. Now he sticks out like a sore thumb. Goodman was later praised for luring the mob away from the room where senators were gathered. Prosecutors in court Friday accused Jensen of wanting to be the poster boy of the insurrection, McFarland tweeted, adding that prosecutors said Jensen was trying to fire up a revolution. "We can't be a society without basic rules," prosecutors said in court Friday, according to McFarland. Yep, they said he was trying to be the leader of a revolution, and you can actually see those images, like I said, online. So here's the image right here. This is 3 images right here. As you can see, that's Doug Jensen right there. And this is Eugene Goodman. Now look at him right there in the front, chasing him up the stairs. And this is when I think they got up there. But like, I do remember him now, where he was leading them away from the offices where they were trying to originally go. And like fools, they fell for it. But yeah, back to the Doug Jensen guy talking about, I just want to go back to being a family man. Well, I question how much of a family man you truly are when you are engaged in these type of acts. Is this the kind of example you want to set for your children? That their dad can just go and bust up into the U.S. Capitol, one of the most biggest federal buildings in the nation, if not the largest, and think you're just going to go in there and do whatever it is that you want because you couldn't get your way? Some role model. Some upstanding citizen. Now it makes you wonder what his kids got to go through on the behalf of him. Just imagine what the other kids at school are probably saying about their dad, and they might be getting picked on. They might be getting bullied because of him, and it would be all his fault. I don't know if this guy was married or whatever the case may be, but think about, his wife. She married a loser. And the thing is, a lot of the people that were there have families that they just went by themselves. It was a solo mission for them. And they just went there, and they probably had families. They wasn't thinking about family that day. They was thinking about violence. They were bloodthirsty. They were foaming at the mouth like a dog with rabies. They weren't thinking about no family. What is family? That wasn't even in their lexicon. Family, what is that? This guy clearly wasn't thinking about his family, but now he wants to say, I want to go back to being a family man. It makes you wonder how much of a family man he was even before this. How hands-on was he with his children? How much of a family man was he in the household with his wife if he was married? You can't use that, I want to go back to being a family man. Nope. You will go into that cell and think about what you did for the next 5 years. Like I said, I'm sure it'll go by quick. Find something productive to do. Because, he got he got sentenced on a federal level, so it's not like he going to Gen Pop. He not going to a state prison, although he should, and the rest of them should as well. You only got 5 years. Think about all the black men in jail that got 10, 20 plus years for weed or for crimes they didn't commit. This guy, they know, committed a crime, and he only got 5 years in a federal prison. He's the lucky one. Again, Operation Protect the White Boy. And that sentencing right there, again, that 5 years is why I couldn't make this into a triple P. If this guy had said got like 10 years, I would have definitely made it one, because that would have been shocking, considering many of the sentences that they have been given to the people involved with this have been very lenient. Very, very lenient. Some people got months. Some people probably got days. Some were lucky and didn't get any time. He's actually one of the few that got what you consider, for them, what would be considered a lengthy sentence, quote unquote. But yeah, Doug Jensen, you got exactly what you deserved. You brought it on yourself. I don't know what your family going to do. Maybe they'll allow them to come and see you, and your kids can see how much of a lame moron their dad actually is from behind a glass. And for all we know, this guy might be a piss poor father. His kids may not really know who he is. So for them, seeing him behind bars might be the most they ever see of them. Because this might be one of the few times where they can actually see him in person and not have to hear about him, say through a text, a FaceTime, a phone call, whatever the case may be. He could be an absentee father. He could be a deadbeat dad for all we know. His kids probably barely know him. But again, he bought it on himself. And this may not be a Triple P video, but I'll add this in. I feel absolutely nothing for Doug Jensen.